came across this little meme the other day. In 1965, when Singapore just got independence, the value of Singapore dollar and Malaysian ringgit was about the same, but close to 6 decades later, 1 Sing dollar now is equivalent to 3 Malaysian ringgit. You know what's more crazy? The average monthly salary in Singapore is 4,100 USD, but Malaysia, it's 804 USD per month. That's 5 times more. Malaysia and Singapore, we shared so many similarities. We were both under British colonial rule, both are multiracial, both gained independence around the same decade, and both are also strategically located in one of the busiest sea routes in the world. Both also started building our economy with labor-intensive manufacturing. But what led to such difference 6 decades later? How come Singapore is so wealthy and Malaysia is so behind? Well, the first thing we can point out is their strong focus on developing human capital. Since Singapore has very little natural resources, they know that human capital is their only resource to depend on. And how do you develop human capital as a country or community? The answer is education. In Singapore, the government spent 1,600 USD on education per capita, while in Malaysia, we spend 500 USD on education per capita. This simply means Malaysia spent only around 500 USD on education per person as compared to Singapore, which is 1,600 USD per person. Singapore basically spent around 3 times more on education compared to Malaysia. This is perhaps Singapore know very well that they don't have much natural resources, so building strong human capital is the best way. Oh, in fact, they would also recruit top students to be teachers to educate their future generation. But guess what? In Malaysia, we have English teachers who don't speak English, science teachers who don't do well in any science subject. And I'm not joking. I've had the privilege of attending a local public university. I've met students who are from IPG, Institusi Pendidikan Perguruan, who were training to be teachers, and many of them didn't even want to be teachers to start with. They were just given the place to be there. And like I've mentioned, many of them are not even interested in the subject that they will be teaching in future. And personally, I believe this is one of the major reasons we are not able to produce a high-income workforce in general. All of us have probably experienced going to school and dealing with teachers who are not able to inspire us. And worse, they themselves have no idea on the subject that they are teaching. This will end up just producing students who are uninterested in learning. I believe students will greatly benefit from good education, and it will really make a huge difference in their future economic success, whether on the personal level or at the community level. And don't we know this? We know this! In fact, our leaders know this. That's why many of our ministers send their children to study in prestigious boarding schools overseas, right? But back here in Malaysia, our education system is so shitty that it makes me angry. And yes, sometimes I feel so trapped. What am I supposed to do? I'm not in a position to change Malaysia education system, and I can't afford to send my children to some prestigious private school. Yes, it's difficult to change the system, but there are some things within our ability that we can do, and really it's not that expensive. And for this, I have to give credit to my parents. Personally, I grew up in a family where we struggled with money. My dad was a school dropout at only standard 3, uneducated, right? And he has a failed business. Mom, on the other hand, is a housewife with only a high school education. My family was in debt and we were literally poor. I've not been sent to any private tuition or attended any cool education programs like art class or music class, but she did some things that really impacted my future education and my learning. My mom, she will make sure that she show us cartoons in English, and then she will get us to watch Sesame Street together, which is full of educational content. Then every weekend, she will take me and my sister to the local library. And because of these things that she did, I actually learned better when I went to school. In fact, I barely attended any private tuition until I reached about PMR and SPM, and only like a few months just to prepare for exam. Subsequently, I also attended Form 6 and then applied to enter into a local public university, which I got in. My dad, on the other hand, although he couldn't teach us about English or mathematics, he always tells us stories about his life. What he learned from his failure in business, what he learned when he was successful, about relationships he had, and betrayals, even from friends and business partners. He has never tried to sugarcoat the real world from us. He tells us how challenging it is, how we may end up failing, and how we can pick ourselves up to face those challenges. And these stories became guideline and experience that helped me to learn from when I became an adult myself. Now, If you're a parent, I encourage you to do that. Start your children's education early. And it doesn't need to be expensive. You don't need to send them to some crazy expensive private school or art classes. It needs you to put down your phone and read together with them. If you want them to learn to read, you have to learn to read yourself. Show them that it's fun. Do it together with them. Then talk to them. Tell them your story, what you learned, your experience, your success and your failures, the challenges that you face. I know many parents don't talk to their kids about their experience. They don't want to tell them about the challenges and the bad things. But they will start telling their kids about this kind of stories only when they want to lecture them about how ungrateful their kids are, how they got it easy and so on and so forth. Don't only do it when you want to lecture them. Always share with them your experience. Talk to them, communicate with them, educate them to embrace challenges and failures. Because the truth is, your kids will fail whether you like it or not. And this is part of education. In fact, this kind of education, even government cannot help you. And that is why you look at Singapore. Even though they spend so much on education, their new generation are often labeled as strawberry generation. And I personally believe that regardless of education, our future generation can be a lot more creative and industrious if we just do these things. The next part I want to talk about is the salary of civil servants. Yes, civil servants. Singapore civil servants are one of the highest paid in the world. Lee Kuan Yew once said, if you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. And are you sure you want to have monkeys to lead our country? What would you expect if they are paid so low and given the power to make certain decisions? I wouldn't be surprised to see corruption as a common practice. I'm not saying that if civil servants are paid better, then there won't be any corruption. This is a whole different topic. And honestly, I have no solution to this. But certainly, I believe when general civil servants are paid better, we will end up attracting higher quality candidates, such as teachers who play a very important role in educating our children and indirectly contributing to economic success. On top of that, with that higher salary, hopefully they are less motivated to take a bribe. In fact, I recall this when people criticize the salary of Singapore's Prime Minister, who is the highest paid Prime Minister in the world, with 1.7 million USD salary a year. The Prime Minister said this, well, on the record, I may be the richest Prime Minister in the world, but off the books, I'm likely the poorest Prime Minister. I believe no one is working for charity at the end of the day, and everyone wants to build a better life for themselves and for their family. Also, not everyone is inherently greedy. Most people just want things to be comfortable. Imagine if you're a police officer living in Kuala Lumpur and your salary is only less than 1,500 ringgit a month. How on earth are you going to make your ends meet? But having said that, we do have certain government positions that have very good pay, like ministers and so on. But sadly, the bulk of them who need to be more efficient and doing all the hard work are not being paid enough. In contrast, look at Singapore. A junior police officer's salary is around 3,000 Sing dollar a month. I also want to be police if I go to Singapore. Now, one more thing I want to highlight is this. In Singapore, there is a very unique policy that ensures all their citizens are integrated together. The housing policy. When you think about government housing, you probably have this in your mind. But when it comes to Singapore, this is government housing, the HDB flats. Singapore has one of the highest home ownership rate in the world, and it is one with the highest housing satisfaction rate too. Each one of these flats are designed to contain between 1 to 200,000 people. Singapore's housing is also so well planned and designed that their flats are designed with one explicit intent, which is to shape their society. An example is this, the arrangement of different size of units next to each other to create cohesion between different income levels. The one-room unit will be placed next to a two-room unit, and the two-room units are placed next to a three-room unit. Three-room units are placed next to a four-room unit, and so on. So, each family is placed near to a family with a similar but slightly better economic level than them, so they can be aspired to reach a better economic success. On the other hand, they are also careful not to mix one-room unit with three-room unit or two-room unit with five-room unit, because the socio-economic gap may be too big that it will end up creating disunity rather than unity. On top of that, Singapore has established a very strict ethnic quota for HDB neighbourhoods and blocks. So families from different ethnic and social backgrounds are encouraged to interact with each other to create unity. Furthermore, each housing project comes together with their own school, grocery store, hospital, gyms and more. That way, their children all go to the same school, play in the same neighbourhood. So nurturing a generation that is integrated as a nation regardless of ethnicity. For us as Malaysia, we don't really depend on government for housing, and since our government flats are not as attractive as Singapore's HDB, it's a different game altogether. It's not easy to say that we can do the same thing because all of us live in different areas and we have no control over who our neighbors are. But as a Malaysian, I've always wanted my children to understand the spirit of Malaysia. So here are some of the little things that I personally do. Since I have the benefit of living in a neighborhood where my neighbors are from different ethnic backgrounds, my child's best friend right now is an Indian koko who comes to our house and plays with him almost every day. And when my son goes down to play in the playground, his cycling mates are kids from the Malay family upstairs. Living in a multiracial neighborhood helps my son to be more exposed and integrated with different individuals from different ethnicity and background, and for me that's the least I can do right now. Now, I understand there are quite many things in this video that I talk about that may not be in our control, like housing, basic salary for civil servant. But there are lessons that we learn from it, such as the importance of educating our own kid. And then as a business owner, the importance of paying my staff enough so they don't struggle financially. Making sure my children are given the opportunity to join multiracial communities. It is my responsibility to nurture them as a true Malaysian, helping them to be a part of a community that is regardless of background or ethnicity, to help them grow up to be a true Malaysian that is united and is able to contribute to the country and bring the country forward. So with these little actions that I can do, I hope it will accumulate to be something significant that change the future for our children. Anyway, this video is not to bash Malaysia and to glorify Singapore. It is not to bash our politics as well. I just wanted to point out some of the practices that contribute to the economical growth of the community, and perhaps we can adapt and hopefully make Malaysia a better place, and hopefully financial prosperity will follow on both personal and community level. I believe these efforts are an investment that pays dividend to our future generation. So, some of you are probably asking me, this video has nothing to do with investment or money. Well, I believe all that I've been talking about, those efforts that you can do, are actually investments. It's an investment that will pay us dividend, especially to our future generation. So, happy investing.